IETMs. Today we'll be featuring the VisX 3D, Larson VisX 3D editing software and Raytheon Eaglevision software. For our webinar, the presenters today are going to be David Manick, who's the VP of Sales and Marketing at Larson Software. Also, we'll be joined from Raytheon Eagle, Sean Bischoff, a principal engineer with Raytheon. And we'll also have Mark Meyer, the VP of Software Development, will be standing by at the end for our Q&A session for any technical questions. Before we get started, the regular housekeeping rules. If you experience any problems with the webinar, please use a little question box in the control panel. All attendees will be muted for the duration of the webinar. Computer audio is the recommended option. There will be associated materials, product information over in the control panel under handouts. You can drag and drop those PDFs to your desktop. We invite you to do that. Also, post your questions during the webinar using the control panel, and please feel free to do that at any time. We will address them then at the end of the webinar. If we should not get to all the questions, we will make sure to follow up with an email. For those of you not familiar with Larson Software, we're based in Houston, Texas. We've been around since 1984 as graphics technology experts. We're a member of the CGM Open Foundation. We develop powerful 2D and 3D software for technical illustrations, conversion, and viewing solutions based on open file formats like CGM and SVG and others. We're the first developer of a HTML CGM viewer to eliminate the need for plugins. We also introduced and take an active role in and produced the first CGM SVG profile for technical illustrations, which is now part of the S1000D. And so we currently participate in the S1000D Graphics and Multimedia Working Group, where the SVG profile was further developed. Also, our partners today in this webinar are Raytheon Eagle. Eagle is a leader in logistics software support analysis software since its first commercial sale in 1999. Eagle works directly with logistics engineering professionals, design software that is easy and intuitive to use. Eagle products are constantly evolving to ensure they're cost-effective and compliant with relevant industry standards. For more information, there is a URL of Raytheon Eagle, and we invite you to browse that. This all said, let's get started with the webinar. I'm going to turn it over to Dave Manick now to get started. I will be joining you at the end for the Q&A.
Thank you, Don, and welcome everybody today. Great of you to join us. This is the first of many, hopefully, webinars this year, and we've doing a joint one with our partners Raytheon Eagle. Really pleased we could set this up and really provide you with an overview of the complete build process for a 3D IETM. I think probably a few of you have been on our webinars before where we've shown you the creation of the 3D illustration. We've shown probably a HTML file with that being used in that kind of environment. But today we have really the actual thing itself with Eagle Publishing System and Eaglevision. So we're really pleased we could set that up for today. So the demonstration, I'll be doing a short presentation on importing of 3D CAD data, the repurposing of that mainly through an animation of those 3D components. And then I'll hand over to Sean later on, and Sean will be showing the integration of that 3D illustration in the EPS, Eagle Publishing environment, and how we would connect that to XML. And then finally, we'll show Eaglevision, or Sean will show Eaglevision, the viewing solution where you can interact as an end user with that 3D technical illustration and the text. So that's all to come. So product demonstrations. So what you'll be seeing from Sean is Eagle Publishing System and Eaglevision. And then I'll be showing VisX Edit 3D, the creation of the 3D illustration itself, and VisX View 3D, although you won't it'll be under the hood, and it'll be part of Eaglevision, where you actually view that illustration in the IETM environment. So this is the workflow, and we'll probably show the majority of this today. So I'll begin by importing some 3D CAD data, mainly STEP or IGES files, but this will be a STEP file. I'll then create the 3D illustration with animation. Then this would go from here as a GLB or GLTF file into the Eagle Publishing System, where it can be managed and stored, and also integrated into the XML through the XML editor, which is the Eagle Publishing System. And then finally, the publishing itself of the illustration along with the XML would then be published to the IETM, which is Eaglevision. And so the final two parts shown will be showing later on. So 3D technical illustrations, we really see the potential really for 3D illustrations in all types of technical illustration. So IPCs, illustrated parts catalogs, procedural data modules, assembly, disassembly, scheduled and unscheduled maintenance, repair and overhaul, operational type data, and also illustrations that could be used in a more functional way, like for transparent illustrations, cutaway and functional type illustrations for flow diagrams, etc. So there's a potential to use 3D in all these environments. Today we'll mainly focus on procedural. So I'll begin by importing that CAD data. This will be a step file, although we can import IGES. And these could be exported from your major CAD systems such as Creo, CATIA, SolidWorks. So all these systems can support STEP and IGES files, and we found really that this is probably the best format because it contains a lot of data that we're going to need to actually do the conversion or the preparation of the file. VisX Edit 3D is what I'll be demonstrating. It can import that CAD data. We then can save that as our own native 3D format called VX3D. The reason we do that is it optimizes the file size, and it also gives the ability for us to save the status of the file, so you can reopen it in the same state and then carry on working on it. VisX Edit 3D provides a really full control over the model, so we can explode it, say for an spare parts illustrations, and we could also explode it and use it to animate the model itself, and we could record that movement. And so ideal for procedural type illustrations or operational type illustrations, and that's mainly what we're going to show today. And finally, you would have our product VisX View 3D, which is the ability then to view that in the chosen environment. And in today's case, that's Eaglevision. So as far as procedural DMs are concerned, we have that ability to select parts, individual parts or components or assemblies, and then move them, control their visibility, their orientation, like a camera movement, or just rotate them. And we can all do that. We can do that and capture this at the same time. We then export as a 3D CAD file, such as GLTF, GLB, and then we can then view that within the environment we're going to, or just manage that data. So GLTF allows us to capture those animations and then view them later on. So the main reason we chose GLTF was because it's open, it's a light file, it's an ISO standard, so it's everything is published on that file format. It has the GLB part to it, which means it's a binary file. So again, it's small and easy to store and move around. There's no plugin required in a web browser environment for the viewing of the 3D. It supports animation, which is important for us, obviously. It also optimizes the file size, and it has really good support by major software vendors such as Microsoft and Adobe. So pretty much everything we were looking for in a file format we found in GLTF. And it's managed, you can see the website at the top if you want to visit and learn a bit about the format there. So I'm going to move into the demo phase. And then after I've completed the demo, I'm going to hand over to Sean, and Sean will do his presentation. So this is VisX Edit 3D. Our control bars are across the top here. So it's quite a kind of minimalist interface and very easy to use. I think a lot of our users appreciate that. We can either open a file, which would be the VisX Edit 3D format, our own native format, or we can import the file. So we can see we have IJust, STEP, VRML, GLTF format. So this is a STEP file. It's one we've used before. Some of you will recognize it. There's no restrictions on this file at all, so it's a completely open file. So it's just really a differential. On the left-hand side, we see the tree view. So all the parts associated with this model appear here. If it was an assembly, a complicated assembly with sub-assemblies, they would also appear from the CAD information as well. So you can work with the whole model or sub-assemblies of that model. At the top, we have our menu where we see the tools. We have a specific explosion. This would be more for illustrated parts data. And then we have our animation one here. So I'm going to start animating this particular model. I'm just going to make it a bit smaller. And I'm going to create our first animation. Now I'm going to call this step 1. And I'll explain why in a second. So step 1 would be our first part of our procedural data module. So I'm going to remove this particular part. So if I just click on it, I then have the option to move this manually, or I could move it via the transform box here. So if I just pull this away, you'll notice that we have a timeline at the bottom here, and that part has now been recorded in that movement. So if I apply that, you can see that this part is now will just move away. I can just replay that, and you'll see that it moves away. So we've captured and recorded that movement. And I'm going to say save and close, because I'm going to create step 2. So the reason it may seem a bit laborious, but the reason we do this is that the GLTF or GLB format needs separate animations, so we can key on these when we're doing our procedural data modules, so we could go through each step. So there needs to be an ID, and this is how we set the ID. So this time I'm going to move these 4 parts. So as you would in any graphic software, I can shift click to select all of them. So I'm going to remove the bolts here and move them and reposition them and apply that again. I'm going to do a bit more to this, because this time I'm going to select them again. But I can select them from the model tree as well. So I can select them from here as well and hold my shift. So you have different ways of selecting things. But instead of moving them, I'm going to fade them away. So I can just, what will happen at the end of this animation is they will just fade and give us that open space to move something else into. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to save and close and create step 3. on here. To say OK to that. So it retains its, it remembers where it was as well. So we can see those parts have disappeared. And now I can actually just move this part into this space and apply. So that would be step 3. And now what I'm going to do is just I'll do one more step because I think you'll have the idea. Let's just create step 4. And I just want to show you one more feature, because we've got here like the bevel gear and its pin is on a different angle. So if I click on this here, I can now move that via, sorry, I'm going to move it again, but this time I'm going to change the axis to center axis. So you'll see the axis change, and I can just move that on that particular axis and apply it. And then if I want to move the gear itself, I'll just select that again, center axis, and then just move that away and apply it. So before I just move on and move over to Sean, I just want to show you that we can here also rotate. We can fade, as I just did. We can change its color. We can change the camera. We can highlight it, so we can flash that item if there's some warning behind it. So you have a lot more options here, what we can do with this particular part. Okay, so I'm just going to save and close at that point. And what I want to do is actually export it. So this would be the final part. I would export this as a GLB file. And this is when it would be passed to Sean or back to the Eagle publishing system to be stored and managed, and then to be integrated with the XML data. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Sean. Let me just make him the presenter. And I'll go to mute.
All right. Is it showing the primary screen? I'm looking for my dashboard. Sorry, this is only my second time.
Sean, it is showing your screen, Sean, just to let you know.
Thank you, David. All right, so my name is Sean. Of course, I'm with Raytheon on the Eagle team. I am the lead developer of our Eaglevision IETM solution. So I'm going to take you through the bits and pieces that get you to the IETM, and then show you all those pieces in action. So let's get started. So David just went over creating the GLTF. Hypothetically, by the time you get here, your 3D illustration has been authored and exported into a GLB format, and it contains all the data required to link the S1000D XML procedure to the graphic itself. IDs that uniquely identify individual parts, names that identify groups of parts, like if multiple parts have the same name of 5/4 or 3/4 inch bolt, then we can highlight them all as a group. Custom properties of parts that can be used to highlight, and the IDs of animation steps so we can trigger playback. The integration of the illustration S1000D XML will require the Eagle publishing system to handle. So Eagle publishing system is our CSDB solution. It provides comprehensive management of technical publication projects. You can manage your XML data modules, multimedia resources, CGMs, and the publication files themselves to create your table of contents structures. It utilizes pretty extensive configuration control features, including check-in and check-out to specific authors, review processes, comment tracking, and everything that makes it a great solution just to make sure that the specific configuration gets to the correct deployment. You can also export both as PDF and Vision publications, or just export the raw data from your publication to be used in other viewers. The Eagle XML editor is built into EPS. It uses various specification DTDs to provide a guided authoring environment. That means depending on where your cursor is in relation to the various elements, it'll give you context-based information of what can go there. And it also will warn you and provide real-time validation against the specification so that you know if you're making mistakes. It also allows built-in Brex validation with violation callouts directly in the editor, as you can see in that sample graphic, and supports pasting of Excel tables and entire procedures from Word, where it will automatically generate lists, tables, and procedural steps. It also has built-in SDE validation and support from tools like HyperSDE. Eaglevision is our IETM solution. It's a S1000V viewer. It is multi-platform, supporting Windows, Linux, and Mac. There's early support of both Android and iOS. It's a little bit behind compared to the flagship desktop viewer, but it's getting there. It's highly portable and freely distributable. The license model is for creating the publication packages. Once the publication is created, you can distribute it to however many places you want without any additional fees. It has a built-in, extremely flexible customization framework called the modular framework. If you're familiar with video game add-ons, where people will create mods to change video games, it works very similarly. You just drag and drop, and it works. It can be run locally or hosted on a web server. So depending on if you have an air-gapped system where you want to run an IETM as part of an integrated solution, or if you want to host it on a industry-wide website for many users to be able to access, both are available. It also has built-in user account and access controls for technical content, so only the appropriate people will see the publications you want them to see. That's right, it's time for presentation. Okay, so here is our CSDB. It has a lot of easy features for filtering down to the SNS. So you only see the specific data modules in the section that you're looking for. I've already uploaded our GLB associated with this particular procedure. I'm connected to a database, so it takes a little bit of time to load. But if I open up the XML editor, you can see that it will be pretty bare bones for the moment, and I'll take us through the actual editing process. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and import our GLB. So now we have our figure inserted. It doesn't have the ability currently to automatically detect what kind of hotspots we need. So I'm just going to manually create them pretty quickly. So we have our various animations and application structure ident, step 1. So there's 1. And then I'm going to just go ahead and copy in a bunch so that you don't have to see me add in all of these manually. Oh no. The white space from my other editor added in a lot of unneeded extra space, but that's fine. It would get cleaned up. Okay, let's go over and we're going to add in a procedural step. comes with an automatic ID. There's ways that you can adjust this so that you get the specific IDs that you want. You'll notice that this is pink. That's basically saying that this is incomplete. Based on the spec, it needs some information. If I validate it, it'll actually tell me it requires a title, warning, caution note, etc., para, something else underneath is expected. In this case, we just need a para in there to make it happy. So I'm going to copy in some text. All right, and then insert in a reference to our first animation. So normally a hotspot would be IRTT11 to highlight a selection. In this case, since we're doing a slightly different function, until the S1000D spec can give us a specific IRTT, internal reference target type, that is associated with animation playback. We're currently using one of the ones available to projects, which is 99. And we'll put in step 1 here. So that's pretty quick and easy generation of a procedural step, its contents, and a link to it. Now I'm going to very quickly just copy in the rest of these because I don't want to bore everyone. And this is basically what we would get for a complete procedure with a bunch of steps, a bunch of links, and I even added in a point where we're going to highlight a specific part at the very end. So validate, no validation errors found, and save. Okay, so now at this point, we would normally go over to the publication module and do a publish to Eaglevision, but since that takes a little bit of time, I'm going to skip it. We already published it so that it's quick and easy to view. So here's our VisX 3D demo for Larson. Load it up. Here's our 3D object, all loaded in, and all the steps that we generated. So now you'll see as we click these various things, we can trigger the animation steps in sequence. Some of the special effects that were demoed by David, we didn't have in this particular animation, so you won't see the fade outs, and a couple of the steps might be a little bit different, but you can at least see the camera changing and the various steps associated with the animations. So that's pretty straightforward. And also there's a lot of features available to us to be able to manipulate this as we come in here. So if we wanted to hide specific parts so that we could see, I haven't done this in a while, so I'm getting a little confused. There we go. We could hide specific parts to be able to see the inner workings of what we're dealing with if we need a better view of things, and then restore all the parts pretty easily. One other example that I'll show you that's a little bit less exciting because it's just a hole punch, but just so you get an idea of what a illustrated parts catalog might look like. Table 2 3D model, you can see that there's pretty straightforward highlighting both ways when selecting to be able to interact with the part and find what you're looking for pretty easily. And I think I will pass it back to David.
Thank you, Sean. I'll just share my screen again. Hopefully it's shared. Okay. Yeah, so I've just put put Vizex Edit 3D back on the screen. I kind of shortened my demo a bit because I wanted Sean to have as much time as possible. One thing I didn't show with Vizex Edit 3D is once we have the steps, we can manage those under the Manage button here, and I could actually play those back. I can edit them as well. So I could play all of them back in here. So I can just kind of make sure everything's working correctly. Each step of the animation is working well. And then once this is done, I could actually I can edit individual steps. I can reorder the steps as well and rename them. And one of the things that we did as well was to create a reverse as well. So if this was a disassembly, you could also create a reverse to create an assembly type illustration as well. So that we added that in quite recently to create not only disassembly but assembly illustrations. So yeah, thank you, Sean, for that demo. That was great. We would like, if you have any questions, this would be a good time to ask them. Let me just go back to the slides. So I just need to go down to the end here. So yeah, we are. Sorry, I'll just summarize and then I'll go to the questions. But please post them in the meantime. So just in summary, we use Vizex Edit 3D to create that animation with steps. As I said, we need to create individual step animations. So Sean was able to key on those in the XML to recognize them, and then when he clicks that link, it actually executes that animation. We can obviously manipulate the model. We could create both animations, but also just straightforward explosions and use those in that spare parts type illustration. We're using that GLTF, GLB format to actually visualize those within the IETM, within Eaglevision. And as I said, as Sean just shown, the integration of the technical illustration, so it could be managed, the 3D technical illustration, it could be managed within Eagle Publishing System and used with the XML to create that data module. The XML editor is built into Eagle Publishing System. I think very easy to use, guided authoring, so very effective way of creating your data modules and a very effective way of managing your S1000D data modules and project as a whole, and then publishing that to the IETM. Obviously, the building and distributing this is very important. Like in the past, we've really only shown you the illustration side, the graphics. And I think it's important now that you can see how this then is used in a real life environment. And this isn't a prototype. You know, we have customers who are using this on actual S1000D projects, so which is really encouraging. So now we'll go to questions and answers. Hopefully some answers. I'm going to bring Don back up and Sean, if you want to rejoin me. I'll just have a look at the questions and see if we can allocate those out if needed. So the first question I think I'll take is, can Vizex Edit 3D handle large assemblies? And the answer really, I would say to that is yes. Obviously, your computer would play a part in this. If it's a very large CAD model, then you're obviously going to be more challenging. So really, the better computer you have to handle those files is really crucial. But yeah, we can handle large models, and we can also split those down as well into assemblies, resave them as our own native format, and save a lot of disk space. So the next question, I did not notice where the animation IDs were generated, captured. What is the visibility of those? So as far as the GLB is concerned, when we write out the GLB file, if we have those steps, they're inside that file. So Sean, how do you then address those kind of IDs within the GLB file?
Right. So there are 2 points that you need to, well, when you're first creating the animation, the name that you give the actual animation step when you're creating it becomes the ID used by the GLB. That ID within the XML, when you're defining the hotspot in the graphic, we currently put it into the application structure identifier, the name of whatever step it was. The hotspot ID itself is used for the internal ref within the XML.
Okay. And obviously there's no guidance around from S1000D at the moment, is there, for 3D files? So have you just tried to align a structure to the 2D side as far as kind of a link is concerned? Sean?
Yeah, we did our best to basically model around what was already there in S1000D to keep things as in the spirit of the spec as possible.
Yeah.
But since there are some complexities and additional properties of 3D based graphics, we needed to take some liberties with what was available to make it a little bit more robust.
Okay. I think the next question would be for you, Sean, is how is the IPC DM created? And can it be created from the Eagle publishing system, which I think you did show that, didn't you? The IPC DM.
So I demoed an actually published copy of an IPD, or IPC in this case. The publishing process, if you used the LSAR environment of Eagle, you can do the same generation of your parts list from that. How you would link the two, currently we are basically renaming all the parts in VisX Edit to have a name equal to the 3-digit index number in the IPD. So if it's part 001 in the IPD list, it would be named 001 in the graphic. That way there's an easy way to do two-way linking. Vision does, well, both Vision and the S1000D spec support replacing the default action with a internal reference at the CSN level. So you can have the link go to a specific part by a different name, but it takes a lot more work to do that.
Okay. The next question is for you as well, Sean. Sorry about that. This is a good question. Is Eaglevision required to review a created data module with an illustration? In other words, how would you do you have to publish it to review it?
So in EPS, there is a preview pane that gives you a couple options. We're adding more features for different view modes, but currently, I think the most recent one provides the PDF output of what the data module would look like, including CGM and other 2D based graphics. We're still working on the EPS side of things to implement the VisX view component, which would also let us add some more easy methods of creating hotspots from the data that's linkable within it. But there is a built-in previewer for most content within the Eagle publishing system if you wanted to see how it actually interacts with applicability selected and with interactions with the 3D graphic. For now, you would have to put it into Vision.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. We will be distributing a copy of the presentation. We just need to kind of get some clearance from that from Raytheon, which we're talking to them about at the moment. Obviously, Raytheon are a defense company, so they have some strict kind of guidelines. I don't really see an issue with publishing them. We usually do publish, but we just need to kind of cross a few T's and dot a few I's just to make those available. So there could be a bit of a delay from usual, but they will. I'm pretty hopeful that they should be available early next week. This is probably another question for you, Sean. Is there a limit on the size of the GLB 3D file that can be handled in Eaglevision?
That's a really good question. One of the things to consider is that the GLB files themselves, once you actually have it in the GLB format, are very, very small. So we've put in, basically it uses the same structure as any other ICN. And we've put in some pretty large PDFs as graphics that have no problem, like over 100 megabytes easily. So I don't see there being necessarily much of a issue with large GLBs.
Okay. The next question is, and probably the final question is for me, is do the part numbers get imported into VisX Edit 3D from the CAD? They do. Obviously, they would need to be present, but the step format does carry all that information. In fact, one of the things that I could have shown is that we have a bill of materials that comes through as well from the CAD, and we can see that within VisX Edit 3D. So that's a very useful function. And I think there's another question just come in. What is the minimum version of S1000D required for animations? And there isn't anything in the spec really about 3D apart from guidance. There's no, I wouldn't say there's any restriction on what version of S1000D you're using. The restrictions probably are more around your IETM itself. Sean, have you anything to add to that?
So at least at this point, we've implemented it for any spec 4.1 and above, because they're all pretty similar. Once you go back towards 3.0 and previous iterations, there's some differences in how they handle both the hotspot tagging and what kinds of properties are available for linking. So it would start to create some interesting challenges trying to link stuff properly and trigger the appropriate functions.
So it's pretty similar to CGM and hotspotting, really. When that came in. Okay, that's great. So thank you, Sean. That was very good of you to answer those questions. Thank you for the presentation. That was great. And I thank everybody who's attended today. As I said, we will hopefully publish the presentation. We have recorded the session as well. So anybody who's attended will obviously get a link to that. I think we usually send them out tomorrow, but I think with the clearances that we might need, this is more probable it's going to be Monday. So we will make available both the presentation and the video recording as well. So if any of the colleagues that weren't able to attend, you can forward that information. Anybody who registered will also get that information. So yeah, it's been really good. Thank you, Sean, again. Thanks for everybody attending today, and keep a lookout for our next webinar, hopefully coming up in a month or so's time. So thank you again, everybody. Have a great day.